I'm Kelly, alcoholic addict, and I am grateful to be here. Thank you for asking me. This is a good reminder. Sometimes I don't get to tell my story a whole lot, but so it's nice to be here. Thank you for that. So I guess I'll start from the beginning, kind of like we always do. I was raised on a ranch over by Lewistown, and I come from a long line of alcoholics. My dad was an alcoholic. My mom's side, they're alcoholics. So I was born, it was just the way it was going to be for me, genetic wise and environmental wise. So my dad was the drinker. Mom did the best that she could with what she had, I guess. You know, she was so focused on dad because he was the alcoholic that I think sometimes the kids got neglected. And they say that, you know, that alcohol and drugs is but the symptom, you know, and I really do firmly believe getting to the root and just digging up those roots, because it does start there. And I feel like a lot of things that I went through and a lot of choices that I made is because of the environment that I was raised in. I was blessed enough that I wasn't physically abused, sexually abused or anything like that, but I was very verbally abused. You know, my dad was very verbally abusive and very cutting tongue per se. And it does a lot of damage to somebody's mental, you know, ability to move forward in life and think that you're worth anything. So I went that way. You know, I had a lot of thinking that I wasn't worth this, I wasn't worth that, because at such a young age, it was ingrained in my mind that I was worthless, or that, you know, I wasn't going to amount to anything. So, you know, that's, what do they say? It takes 1,000 attaboys to cancel one bad thing that's said to you or about you. And I believe that to be true, because it's been, you know, a work in progress as I go and as I grow to overcome that. I was raised in a Catholic home. Both parents were both raised Catholic, so I had to do the whole gamut of catechism, you know, go to church every Sunday. And that was really hard for me too. And I don't even know why, but I fought being a Catholic since I was young. Like I don't know what it was that I didn't want to live the Catholic lifestyle. And I didn't, you know, once I graduated from high school, I kind of went out and did my own thing, but I was raised in that lifestyle. So I wasn't raised with a loving God. I was raised with a punishing God. And I think that when you get older in life, that it's hard to get away from that. And, you know, especially when you get pregnant outside of wedlock, which is what I did. And when I got pregnant, it was definitely, you make it right kind of thing. So, you know, we got married and we had 2 kids together. Let me back it up a minute though. I will say that I was always the party girl in high school. If there was a party, I was there. I loved to drink. I loved to party. I loved that whole lifestyle. I, you know, had good friends. I was a basketball player. I did sports. I had a good life, but nobody really knew a lot of what went behind the scenes. You know, my dad presented himself, he was a rancher farmer. So everybody liked him. You know, he was the type that he would, you know, go to auctions and donate, you know, money and all kinds of things. So he had a good reputation. People liked him, but, you know, he was a different person behind closed doors. And so I think a lot of people didn't really understand the family dynamics there. And that makes it hard, because at a young age, I want to say that, you know, adult children of alcoholics, they say that we fall into a pattern of denial and we learn to lie ourselves. And, you know, I can remember just the littlest thing that my mom would say to cover for my dad. Oh, there's a lie. So you kind of learn to follow that pattern because you don't know any different, you know. An alcoholic can tell you that he had pancakes for breakfast, but it was really eggs, you know, and that's really that thought process. And so, you know, I learned to cover up. and hide the alcoholism because it was a secret and it wasn't something that, you know, we bring out, even though people knew my dad was an alcoholic. You know, he was a bar drinker. He wasn't home a lot. When he was home, he was angry. I had an angry mom though, too. And I think that was just because she didn't know how to deal with an alcoholic husband. She had 4 kids and it was hard on her. So she did the best she could, but we definitely got neglected for that. So anyways, back to, I got married. I've got 2 boys. They're grown now, 21 and 23. And gosh, you know, they had a mom that didn't drink. No, I take that back. I did drink. I was a drinker. That I have to say was alcohol was my first love. True love was probably the pain pills. You know, I got into the pain pills, and that's really what my descent went pretty quick once I started doing that. But if I didn't have pills, then I had alcohol. If I didn't have alcohol, I had pills. So it was just a vicious cycle for me. And so how I got introduced to pain pills was I got a foot injury when I was water skiing. And so I was put on pain pills, but the addictive personality was already there. You know, it was definitely there, because if it wasn't that, it was going to be alcohol. So my kids did see me drink. The alcohol is not what ruined my life, but it absolutely would have. And today, if there's anything that I miss the drinking, you know, not that I miss it, that's probably not the right words, but we all go through, you know, moments. It's ingrained in me, and I'm an alcoholic addict. So yeah, there's times that you still think about it, and it's just learning new pathways and new ways to think around that. And that's what I've had to do, is just learn those triggers and learn new ways of thinking and overcome it that way. And that's what I've been able to do, is to see that differently. So back, you know, with my kids, they seen mom, took them to church, did all these things with my kids, and how devastating it must have been for them to see me change so drastically when I started the pain pills. I started to realize that I probably had a problem, and I just couldn't stop. So their dad and I ended up getting a divorce. They were fairly young, and I got with a guy that he knew the game. You know, he could get pills. He was tuned to that lifestyle for sure. So I started, you know, buying pills off the street, whereas before it was through prescription, but then that runs out. So then what are you going to do? And then pretty soon you're selling your things, or you're pawning your stuff just to support your habit. And I had a house that I owned, and I had a good living, and I was a nurse at the time, still a nurse, but I was a nurse at the time, and I had a good living, and I would max out my credit cards, like thousands of dollars. I would pawn things. Because I had good credit at the time, I would go buy brand new tools to just go pawn them, you know, so that I could get the money to buy the pills that I wanted. And it's that vicious cycle, and it really is the insanity of it. And just not being able to stop. So with that, I ended up getting in trouble. So my boyfriend at the time, he had already been in trouble. And so any more trouble for him just wasn't going to be good. So what happened was, he came up with this grand idea to, let's just go over to the neighbor's house, and they're never home. So clearly, and I was still working as a nurse at the time. And so clearly he was at home watching. Like, I hadn't done that before, so that was kind of new to me. And so he stole stuff from the house and had me pawn it. I'd never pawned anything a day in my life, so I didn't even know what that really was. So I go walking in. I mean, these tools and stuff were so heavy, I couldn't even carry them. Like, he's carrying them in, but not my name was on the pawn slip. So the stuff was reported stolen, and the cops come knocking on the door, and guess who goes to jail? I go to jail. And it was a wake-up call, and I really didn't think that I was gonna suffer the consequences like I did, but I'll tell you what, what I feel like stuck it to me. I don't know if that's true, but I felt that way for somebody that had never been in trouble. And here I find myself sitting in a jail cell, and pretty much the only little white girl there. You know, I'm a rancher's daughter. You know, I didn't really know that kind of lifestyle, but, you know, I knew what I was doing. I knew that the stuff was stolen. So I have to take accountability for my part, you know, as much as I want to blame him and he was this and he was that, but I participated in that. So I have to take accountability for that. And that was hard. So, you know, I got out and I ended up having to be put on probation, and I couldn't stay sober. You know, I would go into the probation office and submit a UA knowing that I was dirty. And that's the insanity of it. You know, I just knowing, I took that risk, and there I'd go back to jail. Sometimes they wouldn't UA me, sometimes they would. And it was that vicious cycle, but I could not stop. And there was drinking in between that too. So eventually they sent me to, I went to treatment the first time in 2009. I think I stayed sober for 2 weeks. That was at Rocky Mountain Treatment Center. And then I went to Benefice, and I did that one. And when I was in Benefice, that was when they put me on Suboxone. And so the clever mind that I had, I thought, well, how about if I quit taking my Suboxone and I start selling it to get the pills that I like? Well, the gig was up. The clandestine lifestyle was over. I could no longer hide anything, you know. So I got nailed for that. And that was when I was sentenced to go to treatment. My probation officer sent me to treatment, actually. I didn't get sentenced to treatment, but my probation officer sent me to treatment. And I went for 9 months inpatient. I went kicking and screaming. Oh my God, I was just so mad. And I can tell you that you can go and not want it and have that change, you know, because I have people, I'm a nurse at a treatment center. So I have, you know, patients come in that really don't want it, but they leave wanting it and finding it. And that's really true for me, was that I didn't want it. I wasn't ready in my mind, but something happened in those 9 months that flipped me around, and I've been sober ever since. So August will be 11 years for me. And it takes what it takes, you know. It certainly wasn't easy. The only thing I didn't do was die. And by the grace of God, I'm here today. And I know that it's because of my higher power. There's no other explanation for that other than me being here because he wants me here. And today, you know, I get to help other people get sober. I have a relationship with my kids today. Had a relationship with them then, but I was physically there, but I wasn't mentally there for them, you know, and that is still kind of painful today to overcome the hurt that you cause your kids. I always say the one thing that can just hit me in the gut and take me to my knees is my kids, you know, and I think that that's a continual process for me, but I've definitely gotten better with it. But I'm able to be there for them now and do really great things for them. My youngest son is a motocross racer, and he's one level under becoming a professional. So, you know, I get to go watch him. I get to be a part of that and see, you know, the good things. And I get to see their life change for the better. And it's just really been amazing. And, you know, today I can sit in a room and feel fulfilled. You know, I could have sat in a room 10, 11 years ago and still felt like the loneliest person on the face of this earth, because I was so desolate and so dark inside that I had no hope at all. I really didn't. I didn't care if I died. You know, I really didn't. And that's where I was. And to be where I'm at today and be able to share my experience with you guys and just know that if I can make it, and I really mean that, and I know a lot of people say that, but if I can do it, you can do it, because I trudged down the roughest road, and it sure would have behooved me to do things differently. But, you know, it takes what it takes to get to where you're at. And had those things not happen, I might not be here. So I am grateful for getting in trouble. I am grateful for going through all of those things that I had to go through to get to where I'm at today. And, you know, I go to meetings and I sponsor. I've got 4 women that I sponsor. So, you know, I'm really busy, but, you know, I have my own home. I have a great job. I'm back in nursing. I had to fight to get my license reinstated. And I have a relationship with my family and they trust me today. You know, they don't, 10 years ago, my mom wouldn't have given me her bank account number, you know, but today I get to help take care of her finances because she trusts me. And that's not where I was 10 or 11 years ago, because I was so self-centered and within myself that nobody else could see. I couldn't see anything else, you know, but me, just that selfishness and self-centeredness. And I continue working a program so that I can see where I'm at today. So others can say, hey, you know, you might want to look at this. I need that. Otherwise, I could sink tomorrow. So I'm really, really up on what I'm doing in my program, helping others, volunteering, being there for people, sponsoring, all those things. So today I have a great life, and boy, I wouldn't change it for the world. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Kelly, for sharing your story. That was amazing. And now I would like to welcome Bill to the podium. Come on, Bill.
So my name is Billy Rosten, and I'm an alcoholic and an addict. But I now get to say, I told myself after 2 years that I would tell myself that I'm somebody in long-term recovery. So my story starts in Great Falls. I was born in 1979. Don't remember much about my mom or dad being together. I know that they had fought a lot, drank a lot. And I think some of the parts that I do remember is they got divorced when I was about 5. I moved to Kalispell with my older brother and my sister and my mom, which was an extreme alcoholic. We were, I know, extremely poor. We never had anything. We went without food a lot. I talked to my brother and my sister even recently. We still can't ever remember a time that we ever had dinner together at a table with our family, which is weird. My mom was, like I said, a raging alcoholic. My dad didn't have anything to do with us. We spent a lot of our time with babysitters, which were pretty abusive, mainly verbal, not a lot of physical, but there was some. And I would say probably at the age of 8 or 9, we did have a female babysitter that at the time I thought was cool, but did sexually assault me and my brother. I didn't know that it really affected me much. Longer I'm sober, I see how it did affect me. So my mom ended up dating a guy that owned a bar, which did nothing for her drinking. It was pretty common to have, pots and pans thrown through windows. We lived in a trailer, usually no heat, no water, one or the other. And I used to always spend a lot of time thinking about my dad and why my dad never would come and rescue us, and what he was doing. I later found out that he was in prison the whole time. At the age of 13, we had a choice to move to Las Vegas or to come live with my dad, which we did, me and my brother, which was a good choice, I believe, because it probably would have been worse if I would have went to Las Vegas. So I think back now, and I think my dad did the best that he could. He was still young, so he was partying, and we kind of just did whatever we wanted. So high school was when I probably started drinking, smoking weed a lot, didn't take any of that serious, tried probably any drug that would alter my way of thinking. Really never became like a drinker every day until I was probably 19, 20. I moved to Billings, and that's when I got my first DUI, which led to a couple more. And then me not having a driver's license for 20 years. So I met my wife, my ex-wife now, when I was 22. I moved back to Great Falls and probably should have saw the red flags when I met her in a bar and just the events that had happened that night. 3 years later, we had a daughter, which was life-changing to me. It was, time to grow up. It was time to be in control of my life and have a house and do all the things normal people were supposed to be doing. And I did for, I would say, probably 6 months. And then the drinking started and this is the partying and a lot of, birthdays and events always led to everybody drinking and my wife not coming home for days at a time, which led to drug use, a lot of cocaine probably and meth. I started working as a painter. I told myself that I was a really productive painter and got a lot of things done, and I was more creative when I would use drugs, so I gave myself that out all the time. And then when I was starting to stay up 8, 9, 10 days at a time, falling asleep at work underneath the car while I was taping it off, I kind of saw that I had a problem. But my daughter was my everything. I felt that I was there all the time. She was just amazing thing. It's something that you created, and didn't really think that I could ever love anything as much as that, that I loved her. Then I had my second daughter, and that was just life-changing. Again, I had 2 girls, got my life back together. My wife never really did. She was definitely a partier, which I soon fell right back into that again. And I was drinking a lot, every day, all day. I couldn't mow the lawn without drinking. I couldn't talk to people. There was just nothing that I could do without drinking, and everybody around me drank, which led to PFMAs with both of us, constant fighting, wrecked cars, just a lot of torture on my kids. Then I moved to a different body shop and became, the manager there, became very, responsible, which I think I took on so much responsibility that I started okaying myself to start using drugs again because I could be there 10, 14 hours a day. That led to a lot more fighting, a lot more cheating that I found out from my wife, and just a life of misery, but continued to still do it. I later partnered with a guy in buying this body shop, and it got really bad then because then nobody was really ever there, so I could get high all day long, and then I felt like I was doing more every day. I got approached one day by my partner and asked if I was using drugs, and like all of us, when you're using drugs, the first thing is denial and no. And he's asked me if I would do a UA, and I said absolutely not. And and he kind of pursued it more, and I said, okay, well, if you're going to do it with me, we're going to have to do everybody in here. And I said, you better be prepared to fire everybody in here because I know they smoke weed, but I'm good. But whatever you want to do, if you want, So it didn't happen that day. But my work started slowing down. I was calling in sick. I wasn't, showing up late, leaving early. And it led to a very horrible separation in our partnership. It's funny how once you become an addict, you get that stigma that comes with it. And it didn't matter if it was a wrench that was missing, if it was a piece of sandpaper, I was blamed for all of it. Everything that was missing at that shop was was my fault, and I did it because I was an addict. There was, if there was $50 missing off this thing, not that the customer was at fault, it was me. So I ended up getting charged with felony embezzlement, which I, thought was a joke and it would all go away. I was asked by multiple detectives to come talk, and I would say, I'd do it tomorrow, just go get high and this isn't going to happen to me. And well, it did. And they finally charged me with it. At that time, I lost everything. I mean, I was on top of the world. I felt my kids had everything. I had a family, even though it was a mess, at that time, we had cars and motorcycles, and that all went away. And so did me being able to be around my kids. DFS knocked on my door one day and wanted me to give them a UA because there was a thought of us using, and like most addicts, we're also lawyers. So I said, absolutely not. You guys don't have the right to do this. And they showed me really quick that they do. My girls were taken. I couldn't see them. And I thought that would be enough for me to quit using, and it didn't. It pretty much fueled the fire. I became a IV user, and that was very numbing for me. I didn't have to think about the things that I was going through, and everything just kind of went by the wayside. And I was homeless. We were walking the streets in a backpack, and I still continued to feed my addiction. I don't know how. I know selling everything from my kids' stuff to my things to everything that you could see, or I could see. And life got really, 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 really lonely, ugly, dark. And I just felt that this was going to be how the rest of my life was going to be. That I was just going to be an addict forever. My kids would grow up, and, a couple of failed, but kind of thought through suicide attempts. Thank God I didn't make, none of them went through. And I decided I was going to get my kids back, and I was going to do everything that I could to get them back. And I did. I did everything that the courts asked. My ex lost her rights. I got full custody of my kids. And pretty much a couple days after I got full custody, I was right back at it, because I was that person that was telling myself that I could quit. I didn't need people to tell me to quit, that I make my own choices. So kind of off to the races again. My oldest daughter chose to live with her grandma. So it was just me and my youngest. My wife was kind of in and out. I finally pled guilty to, at that time, at 36, 3 felonies, and put on probation, which one would thought that would have been enough to quit, but I didn't. I went every time, dirty UAs, had all these different, now I just forgot what I was going to, had all these opportunities to quit, and continued to piss dirty, went to jail 14 times in 1 month, and decided that I would, I told my probation officer that I needed to go to treatment, went to treatment and looked for every reason to leave, which I found one day that, my ex-wife was gone and I needed to come back and protect my kids. I got back to Great Falls 20 minutes later, had a needle in my arm. And then it went really, really, really bad from there, that I was neglecting everything I did. I quit I spent a lot of time in a garage. I got told that if I didn't complete treatment, that I was facing prison time and revocation. So I went to treatment for the second time. Left here knowing that I had no wants or desires to quit. I just needed my PO to be off my back, and that I never really chose. I wanted to make it to Butte, that I wanted to end my life somewhere from here to Butte where my kids wouldn't find me. And I made it to Butte, took about 5 hours. And I parked outside of Butte and made my phone calls to everybody, telling them that, you know, I'm here and congratulations. And one of my last phone calls was my youngest daughter, and I made that call, knowing that I would never talk to her ever again, that this was going to be the end of it, and I knew that I was going to die an addict. She answered the phone and was bawling, crying, saying how proud she was of me that I was there. At that time, I completely lost it, and I just replayed in my head, you know, what the damage that I would do to my kids, and, you know, not being able to see them married or grandkids or anything like that. And so I walked into treatment with a whole different outlook that time, and I did it for myself, and I finally, you know, was open and did the work that they asked me to do. And I left treatment, made it back to Great Falls, and I stopped, saw my girls, and 30 minutes later, I was at an AA meeting. And I know today that saved my life. I met so many people, you know, that are sober and working a program, and this whole different outlook. I was safe. I could, you know, I would go to 4 or 5 meetings a day, and I was safe for 4 or 5 hours a day. And I spent a lot of time there. I was sentenced to drug treatment court, which everybody thought I would fail, which I kind of thought myself. So it was either complete that or 5 years in prison. And I completed drug treatment court, went all the way, you know, no violations, which was very shocking to my probation officers. I started working at Rocky Mountain Treatment Center, which was life-changing too, seeing and helping people as they came in. And I started a new job working as a peer support. So I help people all day. I mean, I do parenting classes, I do outpatient treatment, work mentorship with people in drug treatment court, people dealing with probation. I do a lot of good now, and I have a relationship with my kids. I have met a very awesome lady that puts up with me every day, and she's definitely my rock and our rock, and she holds us together. I have a grandson now that means everything in the world to me, and the days that I know that are hard and I struggle still, because recovery isn't easy. I look at him, and that changes my whole day, my whole life. Just being around my family, my kids, them trusting me, knowing that I'll be there at any time for them. Just being reliable and honest is been life-changing for me. I know now that I can accept the things that happened in my life, and I can be okay with even the charges that I have. And I know that I can help somebody that's going through the same thing that I am today, and knowing that, you know, your past doesn't have to define your future, and that recovery is possible, and you can be happy without drugs or alcohol. So that's pretty much my story.
Thanks, Bill. That was very inspirational. Now I would like to welcome Lonnie. We can give him a round of applause for being here tonight.
My name's Lonnie. I'm an alcoholic. Started at the beginning, I guess. My parents divorced when I was real young. I never did know my dad. My stepdad, my family's kind of a musical family, so they played in bars all the time. And my stepdad was always drinking. And I remember, I don't know, mornings getting up, picking up all the broken furniture from the fights the night before, And he couldn't hold the job because I grew up in a small town in Idaho, northern Idaho, and we moved to Boise in the 4th grade. And from that time, it seems like we moved around a lot, went to a different school every 6 months. About the 12th, I was about 12, 7th grade. That's when my best friend, I started drinking around that time, and a lot of stuff kind of happened that year in school, out of school. My best friend, his dad was a alcoholic, and he ended up killing his mom and himself. I had another friend, his mom was killed in a robbery that went bad. I went down and I'd sneak into I met this guy that ran the bar, and I'd sneak in there and he'd give me beer all the time. And kind of got molested a few times. From there, we went to Wyoming for 6 months and then moved back to Idaho. And I didn't really drink anymore after that till we came full circle back to the small town when I was in the 11th grade. And that's pretty much when I started seeking alcohol a lot. And from the first time, whenever I drink, it was never one or two. I never had one or two. It was either pass out or run out, one or the other. And more times than not, I'd get up in the morning and be on the floor somewhere. And it didn't get, well, I didn't have the money for it to be real heavy, but probably about monthly, I'd say. And after high school, I joined the military and joined the Air Force. I was sent to the Philippines, and there's no drinking age there. So I was only 19 at the time. So I had free run of the bars, everything was real cheap. And got in a bit of trouble there from time to time for drinking. And made it through that. Got stationed back in Utah. My youngest daughter, well, my oldest daughter was born in the Philippines. My youngest daughter was born in Utah. And there my drinking was more like, I'd say every 2 weeks, somewhere about in there. Pretty constant every 2 weeks. But it was always as much as I could till they closed, till I passed out, one or the other. There was never any moderation anywhere when I drank. It was all out. And then so I transferred to the Guard and moved here to Montana. And I got full time up at the Guard. I was working up there, and they got their own bar on the base, so hang out there after work every day. And I got a federal technician full time as a generator mechanic, diesel mechanic. But in 2000, my wife at the time had developed cancer, and we went through all the treatments here in Great Falls and everything, and it wasn't too bad. And then, they told her, yeah, it'll never be back. And 2 years later, it came back, and we went out of state to one of the best oncologists, and of course, racked up a lot of money. But that was when I started making sure that I had enough beer at night that, if I woke up in the middle of the night, that's the first thing I did, grab a beer. Doesn't matter. I'd drink a 6-pack, go back to sleep for an hour or two, get back up, start drinking again. It started to get out of hand 24 hours a day, you know, every waking minute. And come around, I ended up losing my job up at the guard. And, you know, I still continued drinking. And we were taking a trip in 2008. I was going to Idaho. We were going, me and my older brother, he was here in town. We were going to visit my mother. It was the week of my birthday. And I just got done with guard drill that Sunday, and we took off. I'd been drinking all day the next day, and we took off. His girlfriend was going to be the designated driver, which, you know, that's cool. I'll sit in the backseat of my truck, and, you know, you got to do whatever, you know, I'll be back there drinking and whatever. And I ended up passing out, waking up around Lincoln, drink a few beers, pass out, woke up again coming into Missoula. And it was really late. I got in an argument with my brother and his girlfriend, but it was a physical argument. And so I ended up on the interstate in Missoula, kicking him out of the truck. And I hopped in, and without even really thinking about it, thinking like Highway 200, or I don't know what my thoughts were that for sure, but I ended up, I spun around and took off and was heading home, and made it about a mile. And I was sitting there the whole time I was driving. I was thinking, you know, I'm going to get back. I don't have enough gas. I don't have enough money. You know, heck with it. Everything that I lost my job, lost our house, lost everything. And I was going down the interstate the wrong way, and I seen this white semi. About the only thing I can remember is thinking, you know, if I hit the front of that, that would probably finish it. But I ended up missing the semi, and I hit the car behind it. The guy, I get, according to the police report, pulled out or something. I hit head on the interstate going about 80 miles an hour. The driver died instantly at the scene. It took him, I think, like 2 hours to 3 hours to cut me out of the truck. The passenger, he was severely wounded. They flew him to Harborview, where he ended up dying 7 days later. And I spent like 7 days in the hospital, broke my back, broke my neck, shattered my legs, messed up my hands. And, you know, the thing going through my mind when I was told that I killed these two people, well, the one individual, I was in the hospital when they told me. And it's because of the alcoholism and everything. I was so self-centered. All I could think about was me. At that time, it's like, man, I'm screwed. It's like, no, you know. And when the second person died, and I got arrested and put in jail, that's when it started getting to me about what I'd done and the effects and everything, and how the second person actually lived for 7 days, you know, suffering in my mind. It's you know, and anyway, I spent 8 years in prison. I got out. Well, I went through the watch program. There's 7 months. I got out and stayed sober about 6 months, and I started drinking again. And then once I took that first drink, it was like, then the guilt starts coming on. It's like, you'd think that somebody who had done what I did, that would have been enough to stop you. And then the guilt starts building up, so the drinking starts more. Well, I ended up getting revoked and went back to prison, spent 5 more years, a couple more treatment programs. But spending 8 years in prison and the subsequent 5 years without any help or anything, it's like you kind of get locked in your mind, or I did. I don't know about anybody else, but you get locked in your mind, and it's like, I don't know, it's like everything's dark. There's no light, there's no hope, there's no point to anything. And not having a way to deal with it, everything just gets worse and worse. I had my first heart attack in prison, and they sent me to the psychiatrist because they said I was the calmest person they'd ever seen that was having a heart attack. And it was I didn't care, it didn't matter to me. It was like I felt like I was getting close to a way out, getting close to the end. And then after I went back to prison, the same thing. I still stayed to myself. I still do today, but the darkness and the gloom and the hopelessness and all of that, it didn't really make me an angry person. It just made me not care. I didn't care what happened to me, to anybody. I'm still trying to get things patched up with my family, get back with my son and my daughters, grandkids. I got a couple I haven't ever seen yet. But I got out of prison last April, and I still have that darkness and that useless feeling. Everything's bad, all bad luck, everything. And then I don't know, about 4 months ago, 3-4 months ago, was when I was sitting in sitting in a waiting room, and I listened to this conversation between two people, and it kind of dawned on me to maybe start telling my story, and maybe that would help others. And in doing so, it actually kind of brought me out of the gloom, the muck, and things are starting to brighten up a little bit, slowly but surely. I tell you, it's a lot better feeling now than it was 4 or 5 months ago. Hating everything, hating life, not having any purpose, thinking my life's over because, I don't know, for my sentence, I'll get over that when I turn 100. So, it's like, yeah, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But now I seem to have, it feels like I got a purpose, and that gives me a little bit of hope. And I found faith along the way. And I believe, the third step of Alcoholics Anonymous, turning your will and your life over. And I think that's what happened that day, because everything, it's not gloomy. It's tolerable. It's a lot better now. But the worst part about the wreck and the killing the two people was The worst, excuse me, the worst thing was the mother of my sentencing. That was the hardest thing I've ever faced in my life. Throughout my military career, anything that was the hardest thing was to have the mother sitting behind me in sentencing. It's, yeah, it haunted me it still does. Whenever I think about it, it's that, and of course, the two individuals that died. One of them was actually, he was from the one that lived for 7 days. He was from Pennsylvania, and which kind of added to my, I don't want to say that I feel worse about one than the other, but the other one seemed sadder because to me, there was nobody here for him. So he was suffering all that and by himself, nobody. And drinking and driving to me at the time, it was like, you know, it's illegal, but I've gotten away with it. I've never been charged with a DUI ever. I wish I would have been, because maybe that might have helped wake me up a little bit, but it was normal. It's like, I didn't even think about drinking and driving as being a crime. It's just something you did. You know, I've gotten away with it for so many years. It's just that one time. Through AA and some of the people that I've met along the way, it's can't put it behind you that you can deal with it a lot better with friends.